Hello and welcome to my first video with an actual real tripod and not just cardboard boxes stacked up in my apartment. I feel like I just start writing intros because I have to do these like all over and over and over again, but we all know one, that's not going to happen, and two, like it's just going to sound terrible if I'm like reading it off of a card. Hi lovelies and welcome back to another video. This is the part of the video where I sound like every other YouTuber and I'm like, I know I haven't been posting that much lately, but I promise you guys I'm going to get better about it, even though we all know I'm not going to get better about it, and like y'all get 2 videos a year and like that's just how it is. I actually did record like an entire freaking vlog in Japan, and it's really funny because my friends like are really funny, but I just haven't like edited it, and that was in December. And so we'll see if I have it done before my next trip to Japan. Jury's out on that one. Today we're going to be talking about my classes as a fashion design sophomore in Parsons. Now, because of the way Parsons works, you guys would know this if you watched my first year Q&A. Parsons does a first year, which is like a foundation year in any other art school, of just like basic general art classes. So being a fashion design sophomore is like still your first year actually doing fashion design. So I was kind of debating whether to call this like fashion design first year classes or fashion design sophomore. I don't know. We'll see what I come up with. You'll see it below. I don't even know right now what's going to happen with that because, you know. So I was really stupid and I thought that first year was difficult. I didn't know what difficult and time consuming was until I got to second year. I think Parsons is really dependent on your major. So I have some friends who are in, say, like communications design, who find themselves with a little more time on their hands, maybe an easier course load, and then I have friends who are in like architecture who are like me and have absolutely no life outside of school. It really, really depends on what program you're doing. And unfortunately, fashion design is one of those ones where I think I slept in the studio more times than I slept in my actual apartment. Fall, you take Visual Communication Studio 1, Design Studio 1, and Creative Technical Studio 1. You also take either Lang elective or Parsons elective, and you take History of Fashion or Intro to Fashion Studies. In the spring, you just take the second version of the 3 core classes, which is Visual Communication Studio, Design Studio, and Creative Technical Studio. And then you'll also take either Intro to Fashion Studies or History of Fashion, depending on which one you didn't take in the fall. And the Parsons or Lang elective, again, depending on which you didn't take in the fall. I'm pretty lucky in that I did a lot of AP classes and I did some like college classes when I was living in Minnesota in high school. So those credits were able to transfer into Parsons as liberal arts credits and got me out of a lot of the Lang requirements, which is really, really helpful if you are in one of the more rigorous majors, because you will not have time for that Lang elective, and also because some of the Lang electives are kind of weird. I'm not even going to lie about that. So Creative Technical Studio is what you think of when you think of like a construction class in fashion. It's the nitty-gritty sewing, making patterns, all of that. You're going to learn a ton of different seams. For the projects in CTS fall semester, I believe I did a button-down shirt remix, so I had to redesign a button-down shirt. And then I also had to do a knit top and a little black dress that could be transformed so you could wear it 2 or more ways. I'll insert photos of all those projects somewhere along those lines so you can have an idea of what I did. Definitely was not my best work. I wasn't super proud of how that semester came out, to be honest with you, but it happened. Visual Communication Studio 1 is a lot of like layouts and sketching and all of that. I had the most fabulous visual communications professor. His name is Lamont O'Neill. If you guys are going into sophomore year at Parsons, take his classes. He's so good, and he really cleaned up a lot of my fashion figures, which I struggle so greatly with, and I think he was even at the end of the semester like, Eva, what are you doing? Again, I'll insert photos of my VCS work around here, but that class was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it. And then Design Studio is kind of where you get to start thinking through what you really like and what makes you as a designer and put that into projects. The fall semester of Design Studio is a lot of kind of material development and just sorting out what you do and don't like in design, not necessarily even creating final pieces. And then by the end of the semester, you'll have more of a base of like sketches and things like that. I know my final in Design Studio was a group project that I did with my lovely friend Amira. I'll insert some photos. That was really fun. We basically had to take our two different subcultures and combine them. So hers was 90s R&B and rap, and then mine was socialites of like the 1930s, and this is what we came up with. It was a really fun class. I had Adam Sternbach for that class, and he is wonderful. I really, really like Adam, and I also highly recommend him. For CTS, I had Genevieve Jezik, who is super knowledgeable. She is a very intense teacher, so if you take her class, know that you are going to have to work. There's like we once had to have class on a Sunday for 6 hours, and that was maybe one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life at Parsons. I never ever want to do that ever again. History of fashion was an interesting course. Like, I think it's a very valuable course to have as a fashion design major, because it will teach you so much about how trends have developed over time, how the economy affects fashion, how cultural movements affect fashion, and how we're going to use those, like that history and those patterns to develop in the future. And for me personally, I thought it was super interesting. Unfortunately, the professor that I had for that class, well, okay, I should say this. Unfortunately, the one professor who teaches that course at Parsons that everyone has to have maybe could have made the lectures a little bit more interesting. They were a little bit dry, and I think when you're talking about industry that is very glamorized and is very dynamic and constantly shifting and moving, there's a lot of really exciting things you could do with a class like that. So I was a little bit disappointed about that. However, I did learn a lot from her, did learn a lot from the lectures. The tests for that class were few and far between in that you only had the midterm and the final exams, but there was a quiz every single day of that class that you could not make up. There were no makeups for the midterm or the final, but that's not atypical for Parsons. And the final was brutal, to say the least. The midterm actually was also brutal. A lot of image identification, a lot of just very like cut and dry, like you must memorize like this garment from this collection, from this designer, from these dates type of thing, which I don't really understand how that's necessarily all that beneficial in terms of a test. I think there was maybe other places they could go with it, but it happened. Intro to Fashion Studies was maybe the most pointless class I've ever taken before in my life. I think everyone in that class basically used it as a glorified study hall, if I'm being honest. And I know that sounds really harsh. The professor for that class is lovely. She's so sweet, but the class in and of itself is pointless. Like, I think if you're not a fashion design major, it's a great class to take to just learn about like design development, design process, and how people's positions in life affect dress and affect everyday dress. I think, and which, to be fair, it's a class that is open to a lot of different majors. I know not just fashion design majors were in that course, so it does make sense. I think for fashion design majors, you get so much of that in creative technical studio and visual communication studio and design studio that it just seems incredibly redundant. And yeah, it just, it's really, really hard for me to say that that class is worth 3 hours, because I don't think it is. Like, I really wish that they would cut it from the program. In the spring semester, my Creative Technical Studio 2 and my Design Studio 2 professors were actually the same person, which is the first time that Parsons has ever tried something like that out with a class. There were a lot of things I liked about it. There were a lot of things I didn't like about it. I personally feel as though the professor I had was so great for Design Studio. He really helped me so much, and because the spring semester of fashion design for sophomores, you have to pick a pathway to do your core classes in. I ended up getting stuck in product design, which I really did not want to do. I knew that accessory design was not for me and that I would have a really hard time in it and probably wouldn't enjoy it that much, and I was correct. I think that because I did need so much help in product design, having the professor that I had for that class was so helpful, because he was so knowledgeable about product design. But in terms of Creative Technical Studio, I maybe wish that I had someone who had focused more of their career to pattern making and construction. That being said, I did really like some of the projects I did for CTS. I made some laser cut earrings, which I'll show here, and then I made this reversible brocade and distressed denim jacket, which I'll show over here. That jacket took me so long the distressing on it probably took me easily 18 to 20 hours to distress that thing. I don't know if I'm ever going to distress anything ever again, ever in my life, but I did it. Design studio, we basically started with like doing a lot of surveys and like market research and things like that, and then eventually we took all that market research and developed it into a final project or final collection depending on the scope of your like project that you were tackling. I decided to make a handbag called, well, we nicknamed it the bento bag because it looks a lot like a Japanese bento box. What my market research found was that women use handbags because our pockets, for lack of a better term, suck. So I was trying to figure out how to create a bag that was as small as possible, being as efficient as possible, with a lot of room to keep things organized and things like that, and this is what I came up with. Visual communication studio for me spring semester was terrible, and I don't think it would have been terrible if I would have had like Lamont or someone again. The professor I had for it was just not ideal for the class, and that kind of ruined the experience for me. Unfortunately, I didn't really love anything I turned in spring semester really, but what I did like were these leather luggage tags that I made for the course. I thought they were really cute, and then I also developed a brand that was focused on solo female traveler, which for those of you who read my website know that that's kind of my niche on my website, so that was a lot of fun. I really like playing with layouts and graphic design, so I did enjoy that. VCS 2 in spring semester definitely focuses more heavily on branding and how to create a brand identity than it does illustration, in my opinion anyway. Obviously the elements of illustration is still there, but it is a little more brand and branding heavy. Some logo design and development, that type of stuff. Overall, I think I've definitely come out of sophomore year a much stronger designer than I was. I think that I came out a lot more knowledgeable than I was and with a lot more insight. I'm really looking forward to junior year and who my professors will be. I will definitely do a recap for you guys after junior year as well if this one does well, so make sure you like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel. I make new videos whenever the heck I feel like it. As always, if you have any questions regarding Parsons or life in general, you guys can DM me over at eva_fawn. I'll leave my handle over here. Sometimes it does take me a little bit of time to get back to you guys, but I promise that I will get back to you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video. Also, I have been living here for over a year now, and I just got an air conditioner installed yesterday. I literally just did that as fast as possible because I'm running out of space on this card, which means I'm running out of time to film on this card. I'm pretty sure I'm down to like 2 minutes now, and I've been talking like so freaking fast that I sound like Trisha Paytas or James Charles because it's like, you know, dire. Actually, no, I sound like James Charles in real life too, sorry. People always think I'm nervous because I'm talking so fast, which is, I don't know, maybe that's true. Is that like a subconscious thing that I'm like not recognizing?